Hello guys, welcome to MindMajix, and in this special session our trainer will explain everything you need to know about the TIBCO BW. Before beginning the session, let's look at the topics you will cover in this video. We shall start with variable available in TIBCO. JDBC Connection. Please check the caption to jump between the topics. If you are new to the MindMajix channel, please subscribe and press the bell icon to get quick updates about the new tech tutorials, free webinars, and career-enhancing shorts from working professionals. Like and share the video with your friends and career aspirants. Without any further delay, let's start the video.
Hi all, welcome to another session of TIBCO Fundamentals. Let's start with the groupings. So, if you remember if you understand the previous sessions, right, we have already done the iterate, while, and repeat group. Okay, so I think we have done the groupings. So remaining, as I said, there are other types of groups which are called, if you see this activity, right, in the group, if you see there are other types of groups like critical section, scope, and for each, and there's one more called transaction group. Okay, so that groups you can while practicing you will try to understand, but these three are the major most commonly used groups. Okay, so that's why we covered these three groups as of now. So along with that, we have seen the activities wait, notify, and receive notification. Along with that, we have also seen the something called notify configuration shared resource, which these three are actually useful for the inter process communication. Along with that, we have seen few general activities, as well as we have seen the call process and call process dynamic override as well. So we have seen the dynamic calling of the sub processes by using some XPath conditions and all. So this is how we did that. uh, and we have seen some file activities. Okay, I think we have seen almost all the file activities as well. So now we'll see the variables that are available in TIBCO, okay, in BW. Okay, so we see the variables. Okay, there are different types of variables in TIBCO. They are called process variables and shared variables. Under shared variables, there are two different types of shared variables. Again, they are called job shared variables and module shared variables. If you see the job shared and module shared variables in BW5, we have job shared variable and shared variable. We don't have something called module shared variable. In BW6, the naming has been changed, but the way we use the module shared variable is same as what we have in BW5, that is shared variable. Okay, so let's start with the process variables. So the name suggests, right, process variables. The variables that are limited to a particular process. Okay, limited to a process. Okay, so that's they are limited to the particular process. That's the reason why they are called the process variables. And to make use of the process variable, we have to create a process variable within the process, and after that we should use an assign activity in the process. So we have to create a process variable first in the process. After that, we should be using the assign activity to assign some values to the particular variable. Okay, let's see how we can do that. Okay, let us say, let's use, which process can we use? What is there? Okay, yeah, let's make use of this process. Okay, so as I said, where can we create the process variables? If you see, there is something called process variables here, right? I have opened the process here. In any process, if you click on any white space, okay, if you click anywhere on the process, you will find this process variables tab. Here you can create the variable, whatever the variable you want, you can create it. Okay, so let us say I give the name for the process variable as provar, means process variable. Okay, so I created a variable called process variable. Now, as I said, what I said, we should use an assign activity in the process to use the process variable. Okay, I'm going to add another activity called assign activity. Okay, so after this using this assign activity, in the assign activity, what is this asking? Process variable to set. That means we a variable whatever was created in using the process variables tab, we need to set some value for that variable. Okay, we need to set some value for that variable by using the assign activity. Okay, by using the assign activity we can set the value for the process variable. So if I after adding the process variable, I can click on the drop down here in the process variable to set. It is showing us the process variable, right? This is the process variable whatever we have created now. So this process variable is available, and in the input tab of assign activity we can provide the value for the process variable. So you can provide any value. Let us say I can give 1 2 3, anything of your choice. Okay, so after this, what is the error? It says that the activity assigned in the process must have an input transition, as of now we have not done any transition mapping for this assign activity. That's the reason why it is saying that error. So if you see now the error was gone. Okay, but now if you see, we don't have an error at the assign activity or any other activity. If you see that, well, let me remove this sleep activity because I don't want it. Okay, now let us say I have assigned this value 1 2 3 using the assign activity. So what is that variable called? That variable is called the process variable, that is provar. So let us assume that I want to make use of that assign activity. If I want to make use of the process variable somewhere in my process. Okay, so let us say in this mapper activity I want to use the process variable value. Let us say instead of city, I can directly map this process variable from the assign activity. You see, it's not showing from the assign activity, it is showing from the process variable. This is the process variable which was available for your mapping in this particular process, which was assigned a value by using the assign activity. Okay, so whatever the value that you have assigned for a process variable, you can make use of that value across the process. In any activity this value variable will be available. Okay, so as I said, as the name suggests, it's a process variable. It will be available only within the particular process. Let us say if I go and see the input tab of this process, I don't see the process variable, right? So it will be available in the process where the process variable was created at the process variable tab. Okay, so now we have created a process variable and I have assigned some value called 1 2 3, and I can make use of that value in the any activity for that matter, not limited to this mapper activity or something. Let us say now in this mapper, in this end log, I want to use this process variable. So now in this case, if you see, I have mapped it at the mapper activity as well as the end activity. So whatever the number of activities that we have within the process, we can make use of this variable across the process. Okay, so that's the reason why we call it as a process variable. So always remember, this is one of the common entry question. So what is the use of process variable? We can use the process variable within a process, and we can assign a value to the process variable using an activity called assign activity. Okay, so there will be another question. Can I use the process variable can I use the process variable in multiple processes? You can say that you cannot use the process variable in multiple processes because you have created the process variable in one process itself. Wherever, in whichever the process you are creating this process variable, there only will be able to use that particular value of the process variable. Okay, now if you can run it, you will understand it better. Please select all. what is the process that is in the general tab, right? In the general activities and process. Yes. Okay. So if you see, the process was completed, right? So now if you see, this is the value we have set here. We don't have nothing to see here. So the same value was set. So if you see the mapper activity, I have that variable here, right? 1, 2, 3 is available here. Similarly, as we have mapped the same process variable to the log activity, I can see that value here as well. So this is how we use the assign activity. So you may get a doubt like we have the mapper activity which is also doing the similar purpose, but why do we need to have the process assign activity separately, right? So let us assume that you have a requirement that you need to change the value within the process. Okay, let us say you can use multiple assign activities. Okay, so you can use multiple assign activities. Let's do the transition mapping. Okay, now let us assume that the first assign activity we have assigned a value called 1, 2, 3. In the second assign, what I'll do, let me rename it assign and 2. Okay, in the second assign activity also I am using the same process variable. If you see it here, we have a process variable, right? In the second assign activity also I'm using the same process variable, but in the input I want to change the value. Let us say now in this case I'll be 4, 5, 6. Okay, so what will happen now in this mapper 2, I have mapped the value of the process variable. Similarly at the end activity is end log also I have mapped the value of the process variable. So let's try to run it now and see how what is the difference it is happening at the mapper activity and the end log. If you see the process now, it got executed, and here it's same, the value is 1, 2, 3, and in this mapper the value is 1, 2, 3. Similarly, if you see the value of the mapper value at the end log, it is showing 4, 5, 6, but the variable whatever we have mapped here is also the same process variable. If you see that we have assigned a value called 1, 2, 3 here in this assign activity. Similarly, the same process variable we have assigned a value, different value. So now what happened, whatever the value we have at this level was overwritten by the new value. Okay, so if you have a requirement that you need to change the value of any type of process variable based on your calculation or whatever your business requirement, based on that you can make use of multiple assign activities as per your requirement, and you'll be able to change the value of the process variable using the assign activity. So when you are dealing with a process variable, assign activity is a must, and without the assign activity, you will not be able to make use of the process variable. So this is about the process variable. Okay. Hope hope it was clear. Now let's come to the job shared variable. Coming to the job shared variable, again the name suggests, right? It's a shared variable which is limited to a job. Okay, so we have seen something called process variable, and now it's a shared variable. We have a shared variable which is limited to a job. Just a second. So job shared variable are limited to a job. Okay, so let's go back to see the debug mode. Yeah, I think we cleared it. Let me just rerun it and I'll show you. So for every process that you are running, okay, so every process you are running, so that will be considered as a job. Okay, okay, if you open this BusinessWorks jobs, right, if you open this BusinessWorks jobs or here as well, that's not a problem. In the debug as well, if you see the general process was there, and inside brackets we see something called BW0A100, that is called the job ID. Okay, so every process will have a job ID. Okay, So the processes which are sharing the same job ID within this shared variable is limited to a job. So what is a job? A job is nothing but the number of processes which are sharing the same job ID. Okay, in some cases what happens, let us say we are using a call process. Okay, if you are using a call process, so what happens is, in this case, whatever the processes that we are calling using the call process activity are also the part of the same job. Okay, in this case we have multiple processes within the same job. Okay, in this case we don't have any sub processes, so that's the reason why only this process is called one job. Okay, so for within the same process we have something called process variable, and we can make use of it. But when it comes to let us assume that your main process is having multiple sub processes and you need to call multiple processes from your main process. In that case, if you want the data, or if you want to pass some values from main process to sub processes, you can make use of the job shared variable. So let's see how we can create the shared variables and job shared variables now. Okay, so again, as we have used the assign activity for the process variables, for the job shared variables also we have to create a shared variable first, job shared variable, then use set shared variable and get shared variable activities from general activities. Okay, so let's see that. So first thing is that we have to create the job shared variable, right? So to create the job shared variable, you can go to the module descriptors, and here you can see something called shared variables, right? You double click on it and you have the different menus for the module shared variable as well as the job shared variables. So as of now we are trying to add a job shared variable, so I'll add one job shared variable here. So I'll change the name of this job var. Okay, similar to what we how the naming we followed for process variable, right? We created that as pro var, so now we create it as job var. Okay, so consider this as job shared variable. So similarly, if you want to add the schemas also, you can add it, any complex element or something. Okay, so let's make it simple, and as that's the reason why I have added this single element only. Okay, now if I go to any process, okay, so here I can come here, and as I said, we have to use the activities called get shared variable and set shared variable, right? Here there is something called get shared variable. Similarly, I have another variable called set shared variable as well. So I can make use of this set shared variable. If you see this set shared variable, if you see the set shared variable, it is also having an icon similar to assign activity, right? It is also having an icon called assign activity, but there is this hand icon right on the under, that is the shared. Okay, wherever you have shared option or shared function in TIBCO, you will have this icon, kind of hand kind of a thing. So now, using this set shared variable, I want to assign a value to this particular job shared variable. So to assign a value, come to the general tab of set shared variable activity, and here shared variable type. Now by default it is showing you the module shared variable. You can click on the drop down, you have the option to select the job shared variable. Now if you can browse it, you have the job shared variable here. Similarly, let us say I have selected the module shared variable, and if I browse it, it is not showing anything here, right? Because as of now we have not created any module shared variable. We'll create it later. For now, since we are discussing about the job shared variable, let's see that only. Okay, I selected the job shared variable and I'm selecting the variable as well. So using the set shared variable, I can set it. I can set a value for that. So let me just add the variable here instead of this. Okay, I have added a variable here. So you can assign a value to the job shared variable in the input tab, similarly how we assign a value in the assign activity. So you can pass any type of value. Let us say I want to pass some string called ABC. Control save. Okay, I saved it. So now there is no error. As I said, what is the another activity we need to use is get shared variable, right? Get shared variable. So where do I want to use the get shared variable? I'll use it here at the end of the process. Okay, get shared variable. So here again, I'm using the job shared variable. And what is the variable type where I want to use? I want to use the job where only. So we don't have any type of input here because using the set shared variable, whatever the value that we have set using the set shared variable, we'll be able to get it by using the get shared variable activity. So that's the reason why we don't have any input tab here. If I run this process now, you'll be able to clearly see that whatever the value that was set by using the set shared variable was available at the get shared variable activity also. If you see here, the value whatever we have set is ABC, and in here you we get ABC here also. So did we give any input for this? No, right? It has shared the variable. Job shared variable was shared here. Okay, so as I said, job shared variable should be part of the same job. So now in this case it's the same process, right? Let us assume, as I said, that I this is not the case, right? Why do I need to use the set shared variable and get shared variable in the same process? I have the assign activity which is also serving the same purpose, right? So this is not the actual usage of the job shared variable. Okay, let us assume that I have a call process, I have a sub process which is to be called. I have a call process activity using, okay, I have a call process activity. Let us assume that I'm going to call one sub process. Okay, let us say that B. Let us, anything is fine. What is this B? Okay. Assume that we don't have any variable here, right? So let us assume that I'm going to get the variable here using the get shared variable. Using the get shared variable, I'm trying to get the variable here. Okay, I'm deleting the sleep activities wherever we have in any process because it will waste our time. Okay, now if you see here, it is asking for the variable type. We have the job shared variable, and I'll be selecting the variable type. That's it. So now, if I come back to my main process, I'm calling the process called B, right? B process I'm calling. If I run it now, general process, deselect all and general debug. So now if you see, we can see we can see two processes got executed, right? General process as well as B process. So if you see, both the processes are sharing the same job ID, BW0A100, BW0A100, right? So since they are sharing the same job ID, we are able to get the value from the main process. Okay, so I'm setting a value in this process, but I'm getting the value in another process which is also part of the same job, right? So similarly, as we have discussed while discussing this call process, you already know that, right? What is the meaning of spawn? it will work as a separate job. Let us assume that I'm adding the spawn option here now. So what will happen now? Now the sub process will be executed as a separate job. Okay. So if you see now, my general main process is job ID is BW0A100 and the sub process job ID is BW0A101. So if you see the set shade variable value, whatever we set is ABC. Let's see whether we get the value here in the sub process. We didn't get the value, right? Because the processes are not sharing the same job ID. So that means B process is not part of the same job. It was executed as a separate job. So hope you got it now. Job shade variable is limited to a particular job. Okay, you cannot use it across multiple jobs. Okay, to use it across multiple jobs, you have a different variable shade variable called module shade variable. You have to make use of that. That will work irrespective of whether the process, whether the where you are using the variable in the same job or in a different job. It can be available across the project. Okay, so hope this is clear with the job shade variable. And one more advantage of using the job shade variable is that let us assume that I don't have this job shade variable, okay, but I want the value here. I want the value of the job shade variable or any value for that matter within this sub process. How can I pass it? I have to add an input schema in the start activity, and then I have to pass it as input of the call process. As of now, I don't have any input in the call process. That's the reason why it is not showing anything here. But if I have any input, okay, let us assume that I have this call process, right? If you see this input, it is asking for my input. You have to do like this for any process, whatever you are calling, you have to add some output editor and then you have to pass the value from the main process to the sub process. So that's not easy when you have multiple lot of processes to be called. So that's the reason why we can make use of this shared variables, which is a job shared variable. Okay, so as you can see, job shared variable is limited to a same single job, and we have to use the set shared variable and get shared variable activities. Okay, so now let's discuss about the module shared variable. Okay, so there is no limit for this. Okay, you can make use of this module shared variable anywhere within a process, within a job, or across the process. Okay, across the project, any number of processes you can make use of this. So for this, what is that first thing we need to create? We need to create the module shared variable in the same way how we have created a job shared variable, and we will be using the same activities called set shared variable and get shared variable activities. So the usage is same, but the way the availability is different. That's its availability is across the module. That's the reason why it is called the module shared variable. Let's go and see, and first thing, let's create it. Let's do everything within the same process. Let us assume that let's go to the shared variables part, and I'll need to add the shared variable here at module shared variable. I'll be using the module shared variable here, creating the shared module shared variable here, mod var. Okay, so it's a string. That is fine. Let's go with the default data type. So let me go to the main process, my process, and here let us say I'll use the same shared variable. Okay, same shared variable. In the general tab, what should I select? You have to come here and select the module shared variable. Okay, now here in the module shared variable, I can see the mod var. Okay, So I have to assign a value for that. I'll be assigning a value which is like, I'll assign a number 234 or something. Okay, I'm assigning a value which is 234. Okay, similarly I'll come to this call process and I'll select this module shared variable. Module shared variable. And what is the shared module shared variable name? Modware. I selected it. That's it. So now if you see, this call process is having a spawn, right? So as earlier when we are having dealing with a job shared variable, because of this spawn option, we are not able to get the job shared variable value in a different job, right? So now let's run and see whether we are getting the value of the share module shared variable in a different job or not. So if you see this, even though the job IDs or the B process is not part of the same job, I'm able to get the value of the module shared variable here, right? You can clearly see that. I think this is the proper difference between the job shared variable and the module shared variable. So now you can clearly see that even though the processes, whatever the process or the processes, whatever we are calling from the main process is not part of the same job, we are able to see the value getting from the main process to the sub processes or any process, any jobs. Okay, so now we have assigned a value called 234 in a job, in a one job, and we got the value of this same shared variable in a different job. Okay, they are not part of the same job, they executed separately or as an individual processes. Okay, let us say, so now you see that we are using a call process and I'm calling the process called B. Let us assume that I have a process called file, let it be, and what I'll do, I'll add a get shared variable here in this process. Okay, here also if I can select the module shared variable and I'll run this process as well. Debug configuration. Okay, file, right? From the fundamentals, yeah, file process. So I'm selecting this process as well. Let's see. I think this create file should not fail. Hope it will not fail. Yes, it got executed. Now, if you see, we have three different jobs, right? 102 BW0A 102, BW0A 101, BW0A 100. Three different jobs are there. We have assigned the value of the shared variable job module shared variable here in the main process, which is 100. And if you see the input of, or sorry, the file 101, I can see the value here. Similarly, I can see the value in the B process as well. So now if you see, we have used the module shared variable in multiple processes. So I have, since this is a fundamental course, we have very limited processes. So I have showed you in three processes, but when you are working on some project or something, you can make use of this module shared variable across the project. You can call that module shared variable value by using the get shared variable activity across the processes within the project. Okay, so that is it about the uh, variables that are available in TIBCO. Okay, so if you are talking about the BW5, we have another variable called global variable. Okay, so that global variable is now modified as module variable, module property. So global variables in BW5 is called module property in BW6. So if we have any values to be set, right, any constant values, that values you can use the module properties. Okay, so so the advantage of module properties is that they are like configurable. Okay, let us assume that you have the database username and password, or the driver, or the host and port. If you configure them as the module property, let us assume that you deployed the code in dev environment and you want to move that to IT, or your test environment, or your SIT environment. So what happens is you will be able to change the module property without changing the code, without modifying the code. Okay, so that is about the module property. We'll see that module property whenever we get a chance to create them. As of now, we have not created any module property. Okay, and one more thing, when you want to make use of the database activities or the JMS activities from the process, from the code, or from your studio, you have to create the resources, JDBC connection or the JMS connection. Okay, so you can create the JDBC connection resource, and then what happens is you can give the host and port. Let us assume that I want to select the Oracle driver. Okay, Oracle driver, and let us assume my. So this assumption is that you have a database already available in your system. So I have a database available in my system. So I'm giving the local host, and port is 1521 by default, and the service name I have is XC. Okay, and username and password I have is system and system. These are the default username and passwords. Okay, system and system. Let us try to test the connection. So what it says successfully connected to the Oracle driver, Oracle database. So it depends. Okay, when you are working on any project or something, you will get this database URL. You don't need to worry about how to create the URL or something. Okay, you will get this URL with the host and port and the service name and all. You will configure that URL here, and you will select the driver, whatever the driver that you make use of, or whatever the database that you are having, that related database driver you need to select from the drop down. Okay, these are all the database drivers that are available with the TIBCO. But to do this, to make the connection successful, you have to do some configuration uh, to establish a connection with the database or the JMS. Okay, so you need to go to the bin folder and you need to install the BW install utility. Okay, so let me show that, because that's bit important. Okay, so where is the installation of my TIBCO? Let me go to that location. You see the location BW 6.7 and bin. In bin, if you see, we have something called BW install, right? BW install application. This is .exe file. Okay, so just go to do a CD to that location and BW install help. Sorry, help BW install. Just a second. So I think I have to open it. CMD. Okay, sorry. CMD, run as administrator. Yes. CD BW install help. Okay, now you see that, right? We need to open the command prompt in a administrator mode. Now, if you see, with the moment I have selected BW install and help, it is showing the commands. what are the commands I can use. Let us assume that I want to install the Oracle driver. Then I can type a command called bw install.exe and Oracle driver. So if I click enter, my driver will be installed. Similarly, if I want to install the EMS driver, okay, bw install.exe and EMS driver. You have this, right? EMS driver. So if you are not aware of the naming, you can just do this. BW install and help. You will have the names: Oracle driver, DB2 driver. Similarly, I have JBoss driver. Okay, I have EMS driver and FTL driver. So you have to do this step to make use of the database and EMS activities. Okay.